his favorite vase?
She always says don't play ball in the house.
Pork chops and applesauce. That's swell.
Marcia. Hey, you guys. Anyway, no!
Welcome to Here's the Story, a Brady Bunch podcast. Hey, I'm not going to tear this thing apart. It's my favorite show. Welcome back for episode 9, Sorry, Right Number. Mike's working in his den while Carol hangs out with him, sitting on a couch doing needlepoint. It always stood out to me how delicate Mike was with his drafting tools. I've never been so precious with my pencils while drawing. Maybe that's why Mr. Brady earned a good living with his artistic skills. And the phone rings, and it's for Carol. But for some reason, she has to put her shoes on just to walk 5 feet across the carpet. Mike has another sarcastic line, but this time even I think it's a little obnoxious. Knowing me, I would have said it anyways. Now a call comes in for Alice. It's Sam the Butcher calling at 8 at night. It turns out he and Alice just recently started dating. Sam Franklin, the Butcher, makes his first of what would be 8 episode appearances over 5 seasons. Plus one more episode where he's on the phone talking to Peter, but you don't hear him. He's played by Alan Melvin, who at this time was the voice of Drooper on the Banana Splits, and would soon be recording the voice of H.R. Pufnstuf in the movie that would come out in 6 months, taking over for Lenny Weinrib, who voiced Puff on the Sid and Marty Krofft TV series. After the Brady Bunch, he would play Archie Bunker's best friend on All in the Family and become the voice of Magilla Gorilla. By the way, this is 8 p.m. and Mike's still working. This is another thing that always stood out to me while growing up. Sitcom dads always had jobs, but you mostly saw them when they were leaving for work in the morning or coming home at night. In some cases, it seemed like no one was ever at work very much, but we see Mike go to work every day, but then also work from home most nights. He was always working. Again, probably why he made such a good living. At that point, another call comes in, and this one's for Marcia. Mike's been waiting for a call all night, and he can see this is getting to be a problem. So he gets a second line put into his den. Now he has his own phone line. And he's so happy playing with his rotary phone while slouching in a chair up against the fireplace. He calls a recording that tells him the time. I remember doing that like 30 years ago. You know, I had my own phone line in 10th grade back in '89. The number was 88Kevin. And I had a Batmobile phone. Sam arrives to pick up Alice for a date, and he comes in through the service porch. I'm telling you, that door doesn't lead anywhere. That's okay, it works for the scene. Well, now we get into a montage of Mike going back and forth between rooms so he can use the phone, but each one is in use by a rotating array of Bradys. It's hilarious. By the way, Peter is trying to help his friend differentiate new math from old math. I've heard about this before. What is it? Wait a minute, don't tell me. I hate math. Now Mike's back in his den during the day, looking through the bills, and we can see right out his window into the side yard. The first time for that, and it's the first time we can see what's on that side of the house. But the phone bill is crazy high. Toll calls are through the roof on 2 different lines. When I was a kid, calling some of my friends that were, 15 miles away were considered toll calls and cost extra money. The bills would actually show every phone number you dialed and how many minutes you were on that call. Again, something has to be done. But before that happens, I've got to say, no matter how upset Mike gets, Carol instantly puts him right back in a good mood. That's her superpower. And now we're off to Sam's butcher shop, where Alice gets another brilliant idea to solve the latest Brady dilemma. It's a payphone, just like at the butcher shop, that Mike unveils for the family when he gets home from work. Now, the extra allowance he's going to give the kids to pay for phone calls is going to end up costing him more than the higher phone bill was per month. But he plans on returning to a normal phone after a month and hopefully getting the kids to spend less time on the phone in the process. The next night, he comes home super excited about a multi-million-dollar deal he's going to make as soon as he can make a phone call. But right then, Carol's friend, who called in on the line in the den, walks away from her phone without hanging it up. And back then, when someone called you and didn't hang up, your line was trapped open. You couldn't hang up and cut the connection. I remember as a kid trying to make calls only to not hear a dial tone when I picked up the receiver and instead hear the faint sounds of voices. the voices of the last people that called our house and not properly hung up their phone. You wouldn't think it'd be so hard to hang up a phone, but it happened. We would have to scream into the phone until someone walking by would hear our tiny cricket little voices coming out of their end and pick up with a confused, hello? So we could tell them, hang up the phone so we can use ours. Anyway, check out that suit Mike is wearing. Wow, if I had a suit like that, I'd wear it every day. I'd sleep in it. I'd wear it in the shower. Okay, with his den line tied up, he's got to go broker this huge deal on the payphone. At first it goes wrong, but then it goes right. Really right. The deal gets made because of the payphone. And then he sends it back to the phone company and the Brady house gets back to normal. You know, I worked at the phone company for 10.5 years. Though when I started back in 2006, they were phasing out the last of the few payphones left in town. And before that, when I was a teenager, my friend Sean had a friend whose dad worked at the phone company and gave him a special code that you could dial to disconnect someone else's line. So right after that, I immediately started using it on Sean all the time. Whenever I'd call him and his line was busy, I would then call that code, type in his number, and disconnect his line and immediately call back. And then he'd pick up the phone and say, I knew it was you. My parents were on the phone. And then I heard them say, hello, hello. And as soon as they hung up, it rang. I knew it was you. You disconnected the line. I should have never given you that code. Well, even before that, when I was in middle school, there was a payphone in front of Kmart where you could make free calls on it without putting a quarter in, or maybe back then it was a dime. What you had to do was you had to hold a button down, and then as you were going to press the next button for the next number in their phone number, you had to keep holding the first button down. And you had to do that through all 7 numbers. You couldn't let up on the one button until you're fully pressing on the other. I guess it made a continuous tone, and the call would go through. It didn't take long for the phone company to figure out what was going on, and they went and either fixed or replaced that phone, and you couldn't do it anymore. In fact, it wouldn't work if you were trying to call a number where it had 2 numbers in the phone number that were the same in a row, like a 66 or something like that. So, but anyways, for a while, pretty cool. Phone company stuff. Until next time.